Truthfully, I think this may be the hardest decision to make in the world of consumer golf products, and that is, what is the best launch monitor to buy? Specifically, what is the best prosumer mid-range launch monitor to buy in that like $3,000 to $5,000 range? If you're going expensive, it's pretty clear. You get a GC Quad or a TrackMan, depending on what your needs are. If it's going cheap, say under $1,000, I think it's also pretty clear because the products in that price point have differentiated themselves quite a bit. I have a video comparing the best launch monitors in that price point that I will link to below. But when you're thinking about spending like $3,000 to $5,000 on building out a home simulator, having a high-end launch monitor, you want to make sure you're getting the right choice. And there's a lot of good options out there. So today, we're going to compare the Uneekor Eye Mini, the Bushnell Launch Pro, and the SkyTrak Plus. All three of these are camera-based systems. They are all excellent, but they all have their pros and cons. So rather than spend this whole video just kind of comparing in every different segment, I'm going to talk about each one individually. I'm going to talk about what I like, what I don't like, and then we'll do our comparisons at the end to try and keep this video, well, a little more civilized. So if you are in the market for a high-end golf launch monitor, you want to know the pros and cons of everything that's out there, keep watching. This video is for you. A couple quick things. If you're still not sure which one is right for you after watching this video, go take our 30-second quiz. You're going to answer a few questions about what you're looking for in a launch monitor, and I'm going to give my best recommendation based on your needs. I've spent a ton of time on it, so I think it's actually going to prove pretty useful for you. The other quick thing I want to mention is there's one other product that is kind of comparable to all of these, but quite a bit different, and that's this. This is the FlightScope Mevo Plus. So honestly, overall, for most people, this is one of my favorite launch monitors, but the fact it's Doppler-based as opposed to camera-based kind of makes it a little bit different. It's in a bit of a different price range, it's a little bit cheaper, and instead of sitting right next to the ball, it sits behind the ball, so it takes up more space. So if you're interested in this, I will link to my full Mevo Plus review, but we're going to be talking about those other three today because they're more direct competitors to each other. All right, first off, let's talk about the Bushnell Launch Pro. So the Bushnell Launch Pro is actually this, a Foresight GC3. It's the exact same product, just in a much less expensive body. But that's where things get a little bit confusing with the Launch Pro. They've changed the pricing so frequently over the last 2 years, it's tough to know exactly what you're getting, how you're getting it, what you have to pay for, and how it differs from the GC3. So to make it simple, it's the exact same as the GC3, the only thing that's different is its pricing structure. Between the Uneekor, the SkyTrak, and the Launch Pro is now the cheapest option. You can get a ball data only Launch Pro for $2,000. And on the surface, that seems like an incredible deal because, well, it is. The Launch Pro is one of the most accurate launch monitors out there. You can use this in a professional setting and you're going to get professional data. So if you're someone who is most concerned about accuracy, I think the Launch Pro is probably the one to get. And to get that kind of accuracy at $2,000 is pretty remarkable. Here's the problem though. They've kind of dumbed down the Launch Pro to get to that price point. If you want club data on the Launch Pro, you're gonna have to spend an extra $1,500, bringing the price up to $3,500, which now takes it from being the cheapest one on this list to the one in the middle. When it comes to setup between these three products, honestly, the Launch Pro is the biggest pain in the butt. Every time I've had to set it up, it's been a little bit of a process. It's never been quite as seamless as I would like, but the good news is once you get through that, you're pretty much good to go. You only have to do it once, so I don't think that should be a big determinant in what you are buying. One of the best things the Launch Pro is going for is just its versatility. So it's big, but it's not that big. So you can keep this in your locker, you can easily bring it out to the range, and because it's got a built-in screen, you don't need to go through the whole process of pairing it with an app, using it with your phone. You can just take it out, set it down, and get accurate data right there on the range, which is really nice. The Uneekor Eye Mini also does this, but the SkyTrak Plus does not have a built-in screen, so no matter what, you're gonna have to use an iPad or a computer or your phone, which might be a deal breaker for some people who don't want that added step. In my extensive use of the Launch Pro, the screen works well, but there's some annoyances with the fact that it feels like it's constantly changing screens. It doesn't stay on the metrics for as long as I would like them to. I'm having to kind of go back and swipe through things more frequently than I would like. It's not a total deal breaker, but no matter what settings I've changed, that's always kind of been the case, and so it's not ideal for me. As I mentioned, the Launch Pro and all of these products are camera-based, so they take up less space than Doppler-based systems like the Mevo Plus, like the Golf Zone Wave, and like the Rapsodo MLM2 Pro. So if you're limited on space, any one of these three is going to be great. When it comes to software, the Launch Pro is a little bit of a mixed bag. The iPad app, FSX Pro, is not my favorite. It feels very professional. If you are a club fitter, if you really want to dig into the data, it's good for that, but the user experience is a little bit lacking. So if you're not great at digging into some of that type of stuff, it's a little bit less consumer friendly than some of the other options out there. But once you get into simulator software using FSX 2020 or specifically the newest FSX Play, the experience is wonderful. FSX Play is the best simulator experience I've had at home to date. Playing Pebble Beach with 4K graphics just looks beautiful. It works. I absolutely love it. So if you're looking for the best simulator solution with first-party software, I think FSX Play and the Launch Pro is definitely the way to go. If you're like many people and you want to use the third-party option GS Pro, then things get a little bit more complicated, because in order to use any third-party software with the Launch Pro, you have to have their Gold package, which is a $500 a year subscription. And to be clear, if you want access to all those apps we just talked about, you have to have the Gold package, which is a $500 a year subscription. So even though you can get in the door for $2,000, if you want to use it with any software, including the FSX Pro iPad app, you're going to be paying $500 a year. And that's a steep subscription for a lot of people, especially if you're a GS Pro user, where you're having to pay $250 a year on top of that. So if you want to use GS Pro on the Launch Pro, it's going to cost you $750 a year, and that feels expensive to me. So overall, the Launch Pro is excellent. It's accurate, it's versatile, it has a great simulator experience. But the touchscreen can be a little bit finicky. I'm not a huge fan of FSX Pro, and to get the FSX suite of software, it's $500 a year, and that's a lot of money. And to be clear, if you don't want to pay that subscription, you can just get the GC3, where for $6,000, you can get the ball-only GC3, and it comes with lifetime access to all of that software. But that's an extra $4,000, which is 8 years of subscriptions, and who knows where we're going to be 8 years from now. All right, moving on, we're going to talk about the next most expensive simulator in our list, and that is the SkyTrak Plus, which retails for $2,995. This is a little bit different than the Uneekor and the Launch Pro in the sense that it doesn't have a built-in screen. So for some people that just want to have no frills use on the range and keep it simple without an app, this is going to be a non-starter for you. Another thing to keep in mind is if that is your goal, if you primarily want to use one of these on the range, this isn't going to work on a grass range. I've found it to work very well outside if you're on mats, even in direct sunlight, but if you are on grass, it is not going to work very well. That being said, one of the pros to this is it is by far the easiest to set up. It gives you the most connectivity options, it's the most straightforward. I was up and running the fastest with all of these, and generally speaking, the user experience using the SkyTrak software is, in my opinion, the best user experience. When you are on the range and you are getting data using the SkyTrak software, everything just looks clean, it looks modern. It's exactly what you feel like launch monitor software should look like, or at least from a consumer perspective. If you're doing club fitting or you're a teaching pro, it might be a little bit more limited than some of the other options, but even if you are one of those use cases, this will absolutely work, and frankly is probably going to be more understandable for your clients who may not be as technically inclined. In fact, if you were using your launch monitor on the range and just trying to grind and get your numbers and get your user data, the SkyTrak Plus is my favorite one out of all of these because it is so enjoyable to use and because of that user interface. And to go even further, the SkyTrak Plus has some modes in its software that I have not seen in any other launch monitor that are actually super useful and fun to use. One of those is the wedge matrix, where you're going to take 4 of your wedges and you're going to hit 3 shots, each at a quarter swing, half swing, 3/4 swing, and full swing. And it's going to give you your average yardages for each of those. So if you're 75 yards out, you'll be able to see, oh, actually, a full sand wedge is better than a 3/4 gap wedge. And actually having tangible data around those distances is going to make you play better on the course. Another cool mode is bag mapping, where you're going to hit every single club in your bag and you're going to actually figure out what are your yardages? What are your gaps? Where do you need to fill things in? Do you need to adjust clubs? Do you need to add clubs? This allows you to once and for all, in a fun to use and easy to understand manner, figure out what your yardages are, where your gaps are, and where you need to make changes. There's also a few fun games in this that are similar to what a lot of other launch monitors include, like closest to the pin, longest drive, things like that. But that's where the gravy train of the SkyTrak Plus software starts to leave you at the station. For as much as I love the user experience and that first-party app, there are no first-party simulator options. So if you want to use this as a simulator, you're going to have to use a third-party solution, which is kind of a bummer. I wish they had their own simulator software that was built on the user interface of their practice range, because that would be kind of the best of both worlds. If you want to use any third-party simulator software with the SkyTrak Plus, at the very least, you have to get their $130 a year game improvement package. And while we're at it, in order to get those fun driving range modes I talked about, like wedge matrix, bag mapping, those games, you also have to have this $130 a year subscription. But if you know you're buying this specifically as a simulator, you're probably just going to want to pony up and get the Play and Improve package, which is $250 a year, but includes a whole bunch of E6 Connect access. This allows you to use E6 on your mobile mobile devices as well as your PC, and it includes 15 courses that are actually really good courses that are fun to play. There are a few other third-party simulator options like this, like WGT Tour, which I haven't had a great experience with, and I've talked to people that have been able to use this with GS Pro, but neither GS Pro nor SkyTrak Plus have announced any sort of official integration. So if your hope is to use this with GS Pro, I would maybe pause, do a little bit more research, and see if it's actually going to work. I would assume they're going to roll that out eventually, but as of right now, that is not the case. So to sum up the SkyTrak Plus, it's the easiest to set up, the range is the most fun to use, I love some of the games, but if you're planning to use it as a simulator, your options are a little bit more limited, and if you want to use it on the range, the fact you can't use it on grass and it doesn't have the built-in screen, that makes this one a little bit harder to recommend for those purposes. But to be clear, if you love E6 Connect and you're building a home simulator, this one's awesome. And if you're not necessarily planning to do a whole bunch of simulation stuff, but you just want to practice on the range, get your numbers, then this is also my favorite one to use for that purpose. And finally, that brings us to the big boy. This is the biggest one out of all of them. It is the Uneekor Eye Mini. And honestly, this is extremely similar to the Launch Pro in a lot of regards. The Eye Mini has 2 cameras, whereas the Launch Pro has 3. The SkyTrak Plus also has 2 cameras, but it does have some Doppler radar capabilities built in as well. When it comes to accuracy, honestly, all 3 of these have been about similar for me. This has been similar to the Launch Pro. Like I said, I've been using the Launch Pro as my reference launch monitor because I've had it the longest, but the results I got from this were honestly very similar to the Launch Pro, both inside and outside. Setup on this didn't go quite as quickly as it did with the SkyTrak, but it went more smoothly than it did with the Launch Pro. All in when it came to downloading software on my computer, on my iPad, updating drivers, updating firmware, doing all the stuff, I was ready to go in about 45 minutes. And overall, it was a pretty easy process. One area where the Eye Mini is different than the Launch Pro is in its screen. Whereas the Launch Pro has an LCD screen, this has an e-ink screen that's black and white, similar to a Kindle. Honestly, I've liked the e-ink screen way more than I expected to. It's super clear, super crisp, and it has a nice backlight, so whether you're outside, dark lighting, in a garage, wherever it is, it was always easy to see. Another area where the Uneekor is different than the Bushnell is the fact that instead of having a touch screen, it has physical buttons. Whereas you might be thinking, well, yeah, of course the touch screen's better, it's fancier, it's more modern. But in my experience, no. I liked having the physical buttons. It made it a lot easier to actually get it to do what I wanted it to do. I mean, to be clear, the Launch Pro screen, it's very responsive, but I mentioned my gripes of it was constantly like switching, going back and forth. The Uneekor doesn't do that as much, and the buttons just gave me more control over making it do what I wanted it to do when I wanted it. Another nice feature is the Bushnell will only display 6 metrics on a screen at a time. So if you want to get all of your club data, you're going to have to swipe to the next screen. Whereas the Uneekor has 10 metrics that are all displayed all at once. Because of this, the text is a little bit smaller, so if you're hard of seeing, it may be slightly harder to read than the Bushnell, but overall, because of that clear e-ink screen, getting all of those metrics at once, the touch buttons, I found the user experience when you're just using this on its own to be superior than that of the Launch Pro. But once again, for most of us, it's not just going to be the device itself we're going to be considering, it's going to be the software. It's going to be what we're interacting with when we were practicing. If you are just using this on a range, you don't care about the software, all you want is an accurate device with the numbers, I like the Uneekor experience better than the Launch Pro. But when it comes to software, it's going to depend a little bit on what your goals are as to which one of these I recommend. So for general practice, your virtual driving range, the Uneekor uses their View software. And the View software is almost identical whether you're using it on an iPad, your phone, or your computer. Overall, I actually really enjoy the View software. I like it quite a bit more than FSX Pro, but not quite as much as the SkyTrak Plus or the FlightScope software on the Mevo Plus for that matter. One big point for the Uneekor over the Launch Pro, however, is the fact that when you purchase the Uneekor Eye Mini, the View software is included. Whereas with the Launch Pro, even to get the iPad app, you have to have a gold subscription, which is $500 a year. The fact they have no app that is included with the Launch Pro seems a little ridiculous to me. So I love the fact that you can get both the PC and the iPad version of the Uneekor View software with the purchase of the Uneekor Eye Mini with no subscription involved. But as we know, it's never that simple, and like these other 2 devices, the Uneekor Eye Mini has a subscription, which you're going to need depending on what you want to do. So if you would like to use GS Pro or any other third-party solution with the Eye Mini, you are going to have to get their Pro package, which is $199 a year. Now, if your primary goal in buying a launch monitor is to use GS Pro, that's where you kind of have to decide, is this worth it over the Launch Pro? The retail price of the Uneekor Eye Mini is $4,500, but that includes all of your club data. To get the equivalent version of the Launch Pro, it's $3,500. So the Uneekor is $1,000 more, but the subscription fee is $300 a year less. Take all that for what it's worth, figure out what's best for you. But then there's more. Uneekor also has their Refine software, and that is their simulator solution. So for access to their Refine software, you have to get the Champion package, which is $399 a year. Honestly, my experience with the Refine simulator solution is, it's fine. The graphics look a little bit dated, and the thing that bugs me the most is all of the courses are based in Asia. So for most of us, it's gonna be courses you've never heard of. So the difference between playing like Moon Bay in Korea and playing Pebble Beach on FSX Play, for me, that's a pretty dramatic difference. So if you're planning to buy one of these with the purpose of using the built-in first-party simulator software, the FSX Play software and the Bushnell Launch Pro blow away the Uneekor options. But if you don't care about simulator stuff and you just want built-in range access and built-in data, then the free app with the Uneekor is great. So as you can see, there's no one-size-fits-all. Depending on what your unique use case is, and depending on what your budget is, and what features are a priority to you, that's gonna dictate which one of these devices is best. There is no one best overall. All of these are great, but as you've been able to see, they all have their own pros and cons as well. I've used all three of these devices extensively, as well as a lot of the other ones on the market. So if you have questions, if there's something you're trying to figure out and you're not sure of, drop a comment below. I will do my very best to get you an answer. My name is Sean Ogle. I'm the founder of this thing here at Breaking 80, where we do cool golf product reviews and golf course reviews. If you got some value out of this, maybe consider hitting the subscribe button, thumbs up, drop a comment, hit the notification bell. All of those things help me out tremendously and allow me to continue doing reviews like this for you. Again, if you're still not sure which one of these is right, go take our quiz. It'll take you 30 seconds, quick link below. You're gonna answer a few questions about what you were looking for specifically, and I'm gonna give you my best recommendation based on your needs. Also, I've done in-depth reviews on all three of these products, as well as the FlightScope Mevo Plus. I will link to all of those below. So if one of these catches your eye, go watch the more detailed review so you can get a better sense of all the pros and cons. And with that, I'm gonna end this here. I hope you have an excellent day. We'll see you on the next video. Peace.